Alrighty, so this is going to be a video on different types of poetry. Sometimes when people sit down to write a poem, they don't know where to get started, and one of the easiest things you can do is to think about some of the different types of poetry that have already been established. And the great thing is one of them doesn't have any rules at all. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't like being given instructions, you can always go free verse. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see what we've got going on. So first we're going to talk about an acrostic poem. This is a lot of fun for writers who are just starting out, kind of not quite sure what to do. All you do is you think about a topic word of your poem, and then each of the lines of the poem starts with the letter of the topic word, spelling out the word usually along the left-hand side. So you can kind of see over here we've got water, W-A-T-E-R, spelling out the topic. And then a classic one that a lot of students like to do is Natalie. So taking your name and spelling out Natalie with each of the different lines. And then in this one, each of the letters has an adjective that she thinks describes her. So, oh, not her, sorry. Whoever Natalie is. So maybe this was a poem to a love interest. And by the way, here at the bottom, this is called a hyperbole. If you're curious, Natalie, you're one in a million. That's called a hyperbole, but we'll talk about that later. Alphabetic. These are a little bit harder. It's kind of a type of very similar to the acrostic we just discussed. The alphabetic poem, each line begins with a new letter of the alphabet in alphabetical order. So this one over here, A, B, C, D. Alive and well, I stood my ground before I even made a sound. Considered caution, held my charge despite the danger looming large. So A, B, C, D here, possibly to suggest the inevitability of him living out his duty, just like the letters of the alphabet. And this one down here is just a poem about alphabetic poetry using the letters. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. Cinquain, these can be fun. Again, pretty strict rules, so you have to kind of make them your own. Cinquains are just 5 lines long with only a few words on each line, making them easy to write. There are a couple different rules. You can follow different formats. Ask your teacher to tell you what format they want you to use, but one of the easiest is 2 syllables in the first line, 4 in the second, 6 in the third, 8 in the fourth, and just 2 in the last line. So they kind of go doot, 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 pop. And the best ones will have some kind of a switch in the middle, right? So like what the topic that's suggested in the short line in the first line, it changes as the poem goes on, and then it kind of flips it on the reader at the end. Like this one right here, mules, is a great example of that. So it says mules, stubborn, unmoving, brain kicking, resisting, not wanting to listen, people. So the poem is a metaphor, right, comparing mules to people. So all the words they use to describe mules also describe people to this poet. So somebody's a little bit of a cynic. But again, just because we don't agree with the theme doesn't mean that it's not the theme of the poem. Now this one is a little more nice, I guess. It's just describing snowflakes in winter, so each one of these being a different subject of the poem. Concrete poetry is really fun if you can do it well. It's poetry whose visual appearance matches the topic of the poem. The words form shapes which illustrate the poem's subject as a picture as well as through their literal meaning. So the poem should say something. The theme should somehow be tied to the shape. Like you don't just want to be like, oh, it's the love poem and there's a heart. I mean, that's nice, but you want to try to get deeper with it. Like what is the shape trying to suggest? So like this one right here, this over here is pretty obvious, right? It's the yin and yang, but this one's really cool. So if you read it, it goes, once I was only very small, tall, tall, taller, tall, tall, tall. I'm taller than tall, very tall, tall, taller, tall. But now, right? So like your eyes kind of go up with the words and you kind of grow with the poet. You're becoming the person you want to be, the tree you are, as your eyes follow the words, which is cool. Like you go with them on their journey. Watch this one, ready? Two synchronized swimmers balancing life, two polar opposites in perfect peace. A lone shark, a light in the dark. So, a very beautiful love poem. Again, you have to kind of turn your head to read it, which is cool because then the reader is on your journey with you. So if you do a concrete poem, go beyond just, I'm going to make a shape and fill it with words. Think about what you want that shape to say. Symbolism, people, symbolism. All right, this one's a formula poem. This is just, it's kind of like a cinquain, but, you know, each, because it has a formula to it, but a formula just kind of encapsulates anything with specific rules that doesn't have kind of its own label yet. So a formula is any poem in which the poet is provided with a specific structure. To the right is a formula you may use. Oh, sorry, that shouldn't be there. I didn't actually put it in, probably because I actually thought this was kind of lame. But I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, it's like those I am poems. Just if you want to do a formula poem where each line is kind of provided for you, ask your teacher and we can get one out for you. Free verse, this is for all my free spirits who don't like rules. Free verse is an open form of poetry, does not use consistent meter patterns, rhyme, or any other musical pattern. As a result, it tends to follow the rhythm of natural speech. But don't think that that means you can just kind of like, you know, make it prose or like be sloppy or, you know, free verse is still a lot of thought. You still have to use your poet brain. It doesn't mean that you just kind of scribble anything down and turn it in 5 minutes before it's due. That's not the point here. So I would encourage you to pause the slide and kind of read these and think about where is the enjambment, like why did the authors choose to have stanzas, not have stanzas, what kinds of images are being created, and why did these poets not follow any kind of rhyme scheme? Why did they not follow any kind of meter and pattern? It's not like, you know, these guys are like, well, I don't know how to do that, so I'm just going to do free verse. Like that, they chose this for a reason because they're masters. So you try to figure out why. Haiku, everybody loves haiku because it's easy and it's cool. I shouldn't say easy. To do it well is hard, but it's just kind of fun to play with. Short poems that use sensory language to capture a feeling or image. They're often inspired by an element of nature, a moment of beauty, or a poignant experience. So it's usually like just kind of taking one memory or one scene in nature and trying to capture it in a haiku. And a haiku is line 1, 5 syllables, line 2, 7 syllables, and line 3, 5 syllables. I know there are other formats for it, and I know that some people will say that's not the most purest. It's not the purest method, but that is what is commonly taught to students. So that's what we're going to go with. I like this one. The path hard and long brings down with passage of time, and then my heart sings. So the path hard and long, 5. Brings dawn with passage of time. Brings dawn with passage of time. 7. And then my heart sings. 5. You have to know how to count syllables to make it work. Limerick. So these are really cool. They're supposed to be funny. They're supposed to tell a little story. So if you're the kind of person where, you know, you'd rather tell jokes than write serious poetry in Com Arts class, limericks are probably for you. You can write about a fart, and that would be fine. So to begin, a limerick is a funny little poem containing 5 lines. It has a very distinctive rhythm and rhyme pattern. So it goes da-dum da-da-dum da-da-dum, da-dum da-da-dum da-da-dum, da-dum da-da-dum da-da-dum da-da-dum, da-dum da-da-dum da-da-dum. So there's a very steady rhythm and a kind of da-da-da. So there was an old man from Peru who dreamed he was eating his shoe. He awoke in the night with a terrible fright and found out that it was quite true. So that a little awkward down there at the end, but you kind of get the idea. A, and A, this is the rhyme scheme. So all lines 1, 2, and 5 rhyme, and lines 3 and 4 rhyme, right? So that right there is required if you're going to be writing the limerick. 1, 2, and 5 have to rhyme, and 3 and 4 have to rhyme, and you have to maintain the same kind of da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that's just required. If you need help with that, ask your teacher. Lyrics, this is for all my musicians and my budding singers, usually about your feelings and moods. A lot of the words to songs are lyric poems. So, you know, thinking about verses, right, and writing about love and all that good stuff. Lyrics are great for that. All right, here's a page of notes. that summarizes kind of everything we've been talking about. So feel free to pause. Move my face here as best I can. Feel free to pause so you can write all these down. And here's a skill test for you. So you can go ahead and pause and take that if your teacher asks you to assess your understanding. And I hope you enjoyed our first lesson on the different types of poetry and gave you some new ideas to get started.